What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by BetMGM. I am your host, Josh Harris. Can't find my Rangers hat, so going with the lumberjack look. I'm in rural New Jersey. Got to play the part at some points, I guess. Joining me, as always, co-host, partner in crime, whatever you want to call him, Michael Clifford. We all call him Slim Cliffy. How was your weekend, Cliffy?
Not too bad. I didn't play last night. I ended up cashing on Saturday night, mercifully, thanks to old Jeff Skinner's return against Arizona. Top line really did some damage again there. Went to a little Christmas get-together with some friends on Saturday night, which was nice. Nice to see some people there before. Like, Christmas just snuck up this year. I know Hanukkah started yesterday, but like the first weekend in December was Friday the 2nd, and it's 2 days into December. You're not thinking about Christmas, and then you have 2 weekends, and then bam, Christmas this weekend. It's just really snuck up on me. Mercifully, I got all my shopping done back in November, so not too stressed about it. But yeah, pretty good weekend. Crazy World Cup yesterday. That was one of the best soccer games I've ever seen in my life. It's certainly the most entertaining, one of the most entertaining, especially when you consider it was World Cup final. Pretty entertaining NFL games yesterday as well. Just a whole lot of good stuff over the weekend. So nice little stretch of sports here as we're leading into the holiday break coming up here this weekend.
Yeah, Christmas also snuck up on me. Forgot to do my Christmas shopping till last week. Amazon Prime, the play. Everyone got some stuff off Amazon Prime. But yeah, that World Cup game was epic. Man. Happy for Messi.
Yeah,
go right off the
3-2 in overtime. Like, I thought, game over. No, it wasn't. And then, of course, the penalty kicks. I don't know, just really entertaining. Pretty good game from your boys last night. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched bits and pieces of it. Rangers absolutely just wiped the floor with Chicago 7-1. You had a good lineup. Unfortunately, it featured Chris Kreider, who put up a Blutarski in a game where his team scored 7 goals. The old 0.0 from Chris Kreider, not what you're looking for, but you still had a pretty good lineup. So, good on you.
Yeah, they did what they're supposed to do against the Hawks. Like, the Hawks are just awful. They don't even, all their young kids are not even prospects. They're just borderline NHLers. There's no positives about the Hawks right now other than they're tanking. They should trade Kane. They should trade Taze. They should trade anyone with a pulse to get more draft picks and tank for Bedard. That's what I would do.
I just really didn't get what Chicago did in the offseason. Obviously, they're rebuilding for the future, so they trade DeBrincat, who's 23, 24, and they trade Kirby Dach, who's 22, and then they get rid of Dylan Strome, who's playing on the top line for Washington now. Get rid of him for nothing. Don't qualify him. And they don't qualify Dominic Kubalik. Kubalik's on pace for a 70-point season or something like that. So not only did they trade away 2 good young players, DeBrincat, a young superstar, they just gave away 2 pieces that for absolutely nothing that they probably could have just, even if you can't get anything for them last offseason, hold on to them. Trade him at the deadline this season when, teams only have to pay 1/3 of their cap hit or something like that. I don't know. But, good for Strome and Kubalik getting out of there. Got out of there just in the nick of time to watch that ship just completely implode and sink to the bottom of the Atlantic.
Yeah. Kane, they're not going to be able to trade without retaining 50%. They're not going to. We're not here to talk about the Hawks. We could talk about them for a long time. That is a miserable organization from top to bottom. But we have a nice eight gamer here today, and let's get into it. But before we do, as you know, we like likes. So smash that thumbs up button. Very important. Give us a like and subscribe so you keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Don't forget, almost all of our content is available in podcast form, except for Live Before Locks. The shelf lives on those are an hour, obviously. Available on the platform of your choice. Help us out by leaving a 5-star review. Make sure you smash that like button. Helps us out, helps you out, helps everyone out. Help you, help me, help you. Let's get into this fun little 8-gamer here. Florida Panthers with a 2.7 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 3.7 total. Spencer Knight is confirmed. Linus Ullmark is probable. Big news for the Panthers. Alexander Barkov is out tonight. So this lineup not looking too great here. Matt Tkachuk with Sam Bennett and Colin White. Carter Verhaeghe with E2D2 Luosterainen and Sam Reinhart. And then the third line, Ryan Lomberg, Eric Stahl, Nick Cousins. Boston running back their lines with DeBrusk up top, Pasternak on the second line here. The news for Boston is Hampus, Lindholm, and Charlie McAvoy in the last game. They swapped power play units. Lindholm on the top unit, McAvoy on the second unit. Without Barkov, just, this makes it more of a Boston game for me. Spencer Knight, probably the better goalie for the Panthers, but still struggles on the penalty kill. There are a lot of very good expensive lines here tonight, so I don't know how much Boston I'll be getting to, but they're coming in fairly low owned, and they have a massive total, so they definitely have to be in play tonight.
Yeah, as always, the Boston Bruins, expensive, not carrying a lot of ownership, and David Pasternak still down on the second line. I thought it was notable that they had Pavel Zacha lining up again on the second line, pushing Taylor Hall down to the third line. Like, I know why they're doing it. It's because Pasternak with Krejci is good enough to just carry a line regardless of who the winger is on the other side. And then Hall obviously moving down to the third line, put him, in a spot where he's not going to see, very top competition, let's say. Skating with Charlie Coyle, it gives them essentially a third scoring line. So, I know why they're doing it, but it's just frustrating because the numbers with Hall are, a lot better, especially the offensive numbers. Boston's top line has been pretty good, obviously, whether it's Jake DeBrusk, whether it's David Pasternak on that wing. I was looking at their numbers since Thanksgiving. 2.9 expected goals for, only 1.5 actual goals for. The shooting percentage suffers, and that's something that we brought up on prior shows. Whenever Boston is playing and they don't have David Pasternak on the top line, it's that top line doesn't score near as much when Pasternak's not there. Now, I don't think that should be a very big surprise. Pasternak's a top 5 offensive winger in hockey. But at the same time, it kind of hurts their upside, right? Because generally to get there with a line that expensive, you probably need 3 or 4 goals out of them, right? If they're not really scoring that much at 5-on-5, it puts a lot of pressure on the power play. And if it puts a lot of pressure on producing on the power play, then you kind of want David Pasternak in the lineup, in your lineups with them. So I think it's a case, like we said on the Saturday show, I think if you're playing Boston, you do have to kind of find a way to get Pasternak in your lineup. I know he hasn't been really shooting a ton lately. His shot rates earlier in the season were basically, an even 5 shots per game. He's still right around that mark of late, but there have been some low ice time games, 19 minutes, 17 minutes, 18 minutes in his last 10. There are a lot of 20-plus games as well. But I think if you're using Boston, you just have to find a way to get Pasternak in that lineup. And, it's not necessarily a great matchup for Boston. I get the 3.7 total. A couple of reasons. One, Florida does take a lot of penalties, 3.8 times shorthanded per game this season. The league average is about 3.3, so they're giving up an extra half power play per game to the opponent. That's a lot. Boston also amongst the highest for power play opportunities per game, also at 3.8. So, Boston could get 4, maybe 5 power plays in this game pretty easily. And if you do that, that's another case for really wanting David Pasternak in your lineups, right? And the Florida top line on the other side, Bennett and Tkachuk, we've said it whenever they're playing together. They've been pretty good together this season. even if they're not playing, with Carter Verhaeghe on their wing, or whether, they don't have Alexander Barkov, or whether they don't have Sam Reinhart, whomever it may be. Bennett and Tkachuk together this year without Carter Verhaeghe, 150 minutes, 4.3 goals for per 60 minutes, only 2.3 expected goals against. Like, those are pretty good numbers offensively and defensively. I wonder how well Colin White's going to fit there, but it's not like a prime primo 5-on-5 matchup for Florida. So then you're relying, or for Boston's top line, sorry. So then you're relying on the power play. And like I said, you probably want David Pastrnak in your lineup if that's the case. So I do like Boston's top line here, but I think this is definitely a case where you can drop off either DeBrusk or Marchand and put in David Pastrnak instead. Like, Marchand hasn't really been doing a lot lately. 21 shots and 7 points in his last 10 games. That's not really that good. That's, basically like 180 shot, 60 point season, which is certainly not anything close to Brad Marchand levels. So I think you can leave him off given the way that he's been, kind of not involved in the offense. And I think that also speaks to just how this top line hasn't been great offensively at 5-on-5 without Pastrnak there. So it's the Boston power play guys that I have particular interest in here. I know some people might dive down to Taylor Hall, Charlie Coyle, do that as a little two-man, but Hall's pretty expensive at $5,900. Like, that's a $10K two-man. You know what I mean? I think I'd probably try to look for cheaper spots elsewhere. So it's the Boston power play guys. I don't think I'm going to be going anything on the Florida side. Without Barkov there, the power play numbers have certainly suffered. They kind of switched up their power play a little bit last game. If I'm not mistaken, they went back to a more traditional 4-4-1 defenseman power play with Brandon Montour as a lone defenseman. No Aaron Ekblad. Now, they only did that for the very last power play of the game, so I'm not sure if that's something that's going to carry over and be a thing all game long, but it is a concern for anybody that is playing Ekblad here tonight. So probably nothing for me on the Florida side. It's the Boston power play guys. I don't think I'm dipping down the Boston lineup. To get a 10K two-man. Like, if you want to go all the way down to the fourth line, I guess you can. But for me, it's the Boston power play.
Yeah, and I think one-offing Pastrnak on its own is perfectly fine. So, before we get to the blue line here, though, we have a $50 super chat. Thank you very much. Put it up on the screen here from CPS DFS. He says, Tim Horty's on me, boy. I don't know if I'm a Timbits fan. We'll get your opinion on that in a second. Thanks for all the great content. Been on a heater this past week and want to give a bit back. Happy holidays and let's keep it rolling. Yeah, man, you dropped that in our Discord this morning. I finally finished scrolling through them. You had like 12 miles worth of screenshots, which was nice to see from you. Had some really great lineups, some really great crashes. Congrats to you. Thank you for tuning in. And maybe with those winnings, you can get, a little bit better taste than Tim Hortons.
Yeah, I'm not a Tim Hortons coffee guy. I will say the Tim Hortons breakfast is pretty good. I mean, nothing touches McDonald's in my opinion, but the Tim Hortons breakfast is pretty good. And I'll give a shout out to the Timbits. The Timbits are still solid. I don't think the donuts are that great. They kind of changed how they made them a little while back. Not a big fan of the donuts, but the Timbits, the breakfast, yeah, still good. So thanks for that $50 super chat. Congrats on all the success. Hopefully a little bit more here in the final 2/3 of the season.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at Tim Hortons, by the way. There's only one within like a 50-mile radius of me, and it's, not great. But up in Canada, there's a lot more. Yeah. Let's move to the blue line here. Charlie McAvoy got moved to the second power play unit. He's 6,200. So that puts the preferred D-man on the Boston side for me. Hampus Lindholm, 4,600 power play one. Really like that. If you want to punt, I think Brandon Carlo's fine. Matt Grzelcyk, probably okay as well. On the Panthers side, prices are okay. I don't think I would go to anyone unless I'm doing Panther stacks.
Yeah, I mean, the Boston power play has been kind of iffy of late. I think it's been more the goaltending or Boston penalty kill, sorry. I think it's been more the goaltending than anything else. But again, without Barkov, I don't really have a lot of interest necessarily in the power play guys. Like I said, Ekblad may not even be on the top power play in this game. So for me on the Florida side, it would, is Mark Stahl fine again as a deep punt? Like he's been playing like 18, 19 minutes, I guess. Maybe he can get hit by 3 pucks for all you DraftKings players out there. I think Gustav Forsling makes it kind of an interesting play here. His peripherals have been pretty good for a little while now. 17 shots, 12 blocks in his last 5 games. He's really doing a lot. Boston's typically a pretty tough defensive team, but, maybe it gives them more opportunities for blocks. And like I said, I don't think I'm focusing on the Panthers power play. But yeah, Hampus Lindholm, 4,600 on DraftKings. He's got to be one of the best defense plays on the night, I think.
Yeah. And Mark Stahl is so slow now that like he can't even get out of the way of pucks when they're coming at him. So he's live for a shot block bonus just out of the fact of being an absolute pylon. Let's move to the next game. Detroit Red Wings with a 2.6 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3.4. Philly Husso confirmed. Charlie Lindgren also confirmed. Wings top line now is fully correlated on the top power play with Michael Rasmussen, Dylan Larkin, David Perron. Lucas Raymond down to the second line. That is a 3-wing line. Lucas Raymond also on the top power play unit. Dominic Kubalik moved to the second power play unit. That second line, Kopp, Raymond, Kubalik, all wingers on DraftKings. Not that it really matters tonight on DraftKings. I guess like that Wings top line is okay. It's a double center line. I just like it's an okay power play matchup. I don't know how much I'll be getting to on an 8-game slate. With a 2.6 total on the road. Again, this is more for the Washington side. Just lock buttoning Eric Gustafsson coming off the hat trick. Maybe he does it again. I'm just kidding. I would not recommend Eric Gustafsson again tonight, but I think this is like I'm kind of coming around on full stacking more a little bit on the Capitals here. That top line has been very good. That second line has been playing well. So yeah, I think there's stuff to like more so on the Cap side.
Yeah, it is the Cap side that I really do like here. One thing Washington doesn't do a lot of when they're at home, at least over their last few games, is send out that Ovechkin, Strome, Sheary against opposing top lines. So I don't think Ovechkin, at least at 5-on-5, I don't think he's going to see much of that Larkin Perron line. Not like it's something that I would be really wanting to avoid, but Larkin and Perron, the numbers without Lucas Raymond on their line this year, pretty good. 3.4 expected goals for, 2.3 expected goals against, 5 goals for per 60 minutes, 3.8 against. Detroit goaltending is what it is sometimes. Maybe the defense gets a little bit better with Michael Rasmussen there. I'm not sure. That's just such a weird play to have him on the top line. Like, I really don't know. I thought Jonathan Berggren has been playing reasonably well. Pius Suter's been pretty good defensively. I thought maybe he might get a move up, but I guess it's Rasmussen. But yeah, Washington's not going to be using their top line against the opposing top line. So I imagine they see a fair bit of that Adam Ernie, Andrew Kopp, Lucas Raymond line. And Raymond and Kopp actually have played a fair bit together this season, about 120 minutes at 5-on-5 for Kopp and Raymond. That's about 10 games worth. 2 expected goals for per 60 minutes, 3.5 against. 1.6 actual goals for, 4 goals against per 60 minutes. It's just a bad line. Like we've said it numerous times on this show. Andrew Kopp's just looked bad for Detroit this year. Whether you look at the numbers or whether you just watch the Detroit Red Wings, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Yeah, no. I would try to find a different game.
Not unless your doctor prescribed you Perbix, then you can watch the Red Wings. But
yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for that caveat. I had completely forgotten. But Kopp, his offensive numbers this year are just brutal. Raymond still not like a great two-way winger just yet. He can score, but he's still not that good defensively. I think it's just a really, really great matchup for that Washington top line, which has itself been very good. 3.8 expected goals for, 2.5 expected goals against per 60 minutes in their last 125 minutes together. The problem is the shooting percentage. That's been the problem for Washington at 5-on-5 and kind of on the power play basically all season. So, if that shooting percentage can ever turn around, shooting 4% in their last 10 games together, if that can ever climb up to 8, 9, 10%, this is a line that could score 4 goals per 60 minutes, which is obviously very, very good. So it is a Washington top line that I do like in this game. Ovechkin, Strome, and Sheary. As I always say, I think you can, kind of take out Sheary and put in Kuznetsov for some additional power play exposure if you want. Kuznetsov has actually looked good after – seemed like he had a rough stretch to start the season, maybe bad 7-8 games to start the year, but he's been pretty good over the last 20 games or so. So, Ovechkin, Strome, and Kuznetsov I think is something you can do. Just remember that Marcus Johansson's now back on the top power play unit with TJ Oshie injured. We had talked about how much better the power play had been with Oshie there, so it's kind of concerning. But the Detroit penalty kills amongst the worst in the league over the last few weeks. So still a good power play spot for the Caps, I think. So it's the Washington top line that I really like here. The second line seems fine. Kuznetsov and Mantha do have a pretty good sample together. 100 minutes, 2.6 expected goals for, 4.2 actual goals for. Again, the big problem is shooting percentage. Kuznetsov shooting 5.1% on the year, which is less than half his 3-year average. So if he can turn that around, obviously there's some upside. I don't mind Kuznetsov Mantha as like a 2-man or something like that. Is pretty cheap because Mantha's price hasn't come up yet, but it's the Washington top line that I really, really like in this game. I'm going to be honest. I think Detroit's best line as it stands might be the third line with Kubalik, Suter, and Sundqvist, which feels really weird to say. You get 2 to the 3 guys on the second power play unit. I think it's reasonable to, one off a Sundqvist or something like that. But Kubalik's price still hasn't really come down a lot from earlier in the season. So it's a bit of an expensive, it's kind of like Boston 3 in that sense. It's a bit of an expensive 2-man. I don't mind them, but there's really not much else higher in the Detroit lineup that I'm really chasing to play. So it's really the Washington top line / Washington power play for me in this one.
Yep, I'm on board there. Let's move to the blue line. John Carlson, 6,700. As you mentioned, Oshie out. Their power play may struggle a little bit, but Carlson, 6,700 is fine. Nick Jensen, 2,900 is okay. Orlov, 3,800. If you want to go chase points with Gustafsson, best of luck. I doubt he'll. Can I just say the Leafs gave up the hat trick to Mark Pysyk too, and Eric Gustafsson. Like, great job, Leafs. Just any chance we get to bash the Leafs, we do it. On the Detroit side, like the prices are pretty good. Like Wallman's been way more active now. Like Jake Wallman, probably the preferred guy for me. Moritz Seider is fine at 4,800. Hronek's fine at 4,900, but probably Jake Wallman for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's really a great power play spot for Detroit. Washington doesn't take many penalties, only 2.8 times shorthanded per game. The penalty kill has generally been a lot better over their last 20 games. Obviously, there are some bad games in there, but that happens to every team. Yeah, Jake Wallman skating over 19 minutes and 30 seconds on average in his last 4 games, has 11 shots and 7 blocks in those 4 games as well. So even though it's up to $3K, I think he's still playable at that price. Yeah, I like that. I really do like that price on John Carlson as well. And even Dmitry Orlov, like he's looked good since his return. I think Orlov is one of those guys, in that mid to high 3s range that, if the salary's left and he's there, I think it's perfectly acceptable to play him.
Yep. I definitely agree there. Dallas Stars 3.8 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 2.6 total. Jake Ottinger probable. Daniil Tarasov confirmed. Boone Jenner IR. Kent Johnson top line center. Kent Johnson winger on DK. Not the best matchup in the world though. They're going to get Dallas 1, which is tuning the machine back up here. Dallas 1 coming in around a little under 14% as a line. I think that's perfectly fine. They probably come in a little bit higher. Towards the end of the day, they're projected very, very well, fully correlated. Blue Jackets penalty kill, not great. So, yeah, Dallas 1 for me. Don't mind that Dallas third line either. Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnson, Mason Marchment. The problem there is they're probably coming in over-owned. But at the end of the day, there's ways to get different. So if you're not spending up for Dallas 1, I think Dallas 3 is fine.
Yeah, for me, it's the pricing on Dallas. 20,600 feels like one of those spots where a lot of people are going to play him against Columbus for very good reason. I mean, we do have them at 13% on DraftKings per our top stacks tool, lower on FanDuel because they are a lot more expensive. They're $26,300 line on FanDuel, so relatively speaking, like $4,000 above when you factor in the difference in salary caps. So they're definitely a much lower own play on FanDuel. DraftKings, though, I think they're perfectly acceptable. I wonder how Columbus kind of runs their lines here, because there have been times this season where they've been going through injury and they've sent out their fourth line out against the opposing top line. I guess it'd be technically the third line now with Eric Robertson and Sean Corrali. Sometimes they do use them in a shutdown role against the opposing top line. I don't know if they're going to do that here, but I can't imagine they're going to send out Kent Johnson and Patrick Laine against the Dallas top line, right?
That is true, but who knows, really?
I mean, that just seems like a matchup for them to feast on. Here's the thing with Columbus is Boone Jenner really does make a pretty big difference on that top line. I was looking at Johnny Gaudreau's on-ice numbers without him this year, and they're just bad. 1.9 expected goals for, 3.4 expected goals against, 2.8 actual goals for, 3 actual goals against. The goaltending is actually held up somewhat in that sample. But, yeah, I can't imagine Kent Johnson and Patrick Laine are going to make them that much better defensively. So if they do send them out against Dallas 1, they're probably going to get run over. If they send out Robinson, Corrali, and Marchenko, they're probably going to get run over. Like, I really do like the Dallas top line here tonight. It is a pretty good spot for them. One of the problems, though, is the Columbus penalty kill, in that they don't take a ton of penalties. They're around league average, time shorthanded per game. And the penalty kill has been much, much better over the last month or so than it was earlier in the season. The Dallas power play, obviously, still very, very good, but it's not as good as it was over the first month of the season as well. So, yeah, like I have no problem playing the Dallas top line here tonight. Amongst the expensive lines that aren't Edmonton, I think they're probably my favorite. Like, if you talk about like Boston and Buffalo and Colorado, they're probably my favorite of that group, but they're also going to be the highest owned. I always worry about high owned expensive lines on the road. I like almost regardless of the matchup. You know what I mean? So it makes me kind of nervous, but they are on the top of my list outside of Edmonton for those expensive lines. So I really do like that Dallas top line here. What to do with the depth is a little bit of a different issue because, one thing that we do talk about is sometimes playing depth in these high total matchups, avoiding the expensive lines. But like you said, a lot of ownership on that Johnston, Marchment, Benn line. Our top stacks tool, I'll bring it up real quick, as them as one of the worst leverages on the slate, other than the Arizona second line. I think you're going to see a lot of Arizona. We'll get to them. I think we're going to see a lot of Arizona on this slate, which is kind of weird, but just way too much ownership on the depth. So I think for me, this is a case where I would just go to the top line rather than anything else. Like, if you want to mix in Jamie Benn for the power play exposure, I think that's fine, but it's the Dallas top line for me. On the Columbus side, I don't know, man. Like I said, without Jenner there, I'm not sure how good that top line is. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know how long Kent Johnson lasts on that top line. His numbers this year aren't very good. He's a rookie, but he's playing on the top line, and he's going to be expected to play at a commensurate level. And if he's not, Jack Roslovic and Patrick Laine have actually played pretty well offensively this year. It wouldn't surprise me to see Roslovic move up, especially if Dallas gets out to like a 2-0 or 3-0 lead or something like that. So probably not a lot for me from the Columbus side. Dallas top line for me. I don't think this is a spot where I'm going to go and play the depth.
Yeah, I also agree that if Kent Johnson comes out not great, that we'll see Roslovic up there before long. So just keep that in mind if you are on the Columbus side here tonight. On the blue line, Miro Heiskanen for the power play. I think that's fine. Otherwise, S. Lindell, Nils Lundqvist. Vladislav Gavrikov, 3,900, or our boy, Eric Gabranson, 2,900 is the play on the Columbus side.
Yeah, I think it's good Branson. Like normally I do like Esa Lindell, but again, without Jenner and on a team that, is not a high shot volume team anyway, it's like, is this a spot where Lindell's, probable, likely has a good chance of getting the block bonus? Like, I don't really think so. I have no problem just playing Heiskanen. He's 5,200. That's pretty reasonable for him in a 3.8 total, even if he doesn't put up monster peripherals. Good Branson. I hate saying this, but he's one of my favorite sub 3K plays on DraftKings here tonight. I mean, he's going to put up peripherals. He has been putting up peripherals, going to play good minutes against a team that can shoot a lot. And I think a block bonus is potentially in his future here tonight on DraftKings.
Yep. As we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by BetMGM. Get you a risk-free bet up to $1,000 and 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. Very easy. Most important part, click the link in the description so your boys, Josh and Cliffy, get the credit. We want to be the highest selling show on this channel. So if you need to sign up, give us the credit. Click the link in the description below. Follow the steps. You'll get a free bet up to $1,000, and you'll get 2 free months Stokastic plus Platinum. After everything settles, check your email. You'll get it from BetMGM, not Stokastic. You'll get an email from BetMGM with instructions for redeeming your 2 free months Stokastic plus Platinum. So again, click the link in the description below for more details. Sign us up. Make us the top selling show. You guys know what to do. Let's move on to the next one. Edmonton with a 3.3 total. Heading into Nashville, the Predators have a 3.2 total. Jack Campbell, UC Saros confirmed. Nashville's total has gone up through the day. Edmonton's total has gone down through the day. That's despite Nashville saying that Thomas Novak is going to be the top line center between Philip Forsberg and Mikael Granlund. Second line of Nino Niederreiter, Cody Glass, Colton Sissons. A third line of Cole Smith, Ryan Johansson, and Matt Duchene. It doesn't really matter what the Edmonton lines are outside of the top line when Draisaitl, Hyman, and McDavid are together. So, yeah, for me, this is an Edmonton game. They are 25,400 on DraftKings, which is I think the most expensive they've been this season. It is very tough to get them in with competent line. That's why you're seeing ownership as a cumulative line under 10%. McDavid up around 13%. He might come in a bit higher than that. People love to, one-off McDavid. But I think if you're going to do anything with the Oilers here, you full stack that top line. You could take out Hyman, add Nugent Hopkins to save, 1,200 and go about your day. On the Nashville side, like Jack Campbell and that, I want to get behind some Nashville here, but like these lines are just brutal. So I don't know, maybe a one-off Duchene. Yossi's probably my favorite play, which we'll get to on the blue line.
Yeah, I mean, Novak's not in the DK player pool, so you can't even stack the top line for Nashville if you want. And it was funny. I was looking through some of the expected goals numbers earlier today on the season so far. I hadn't really realized Michael Granlund is having an absolutely brutal season when you look at expected goals impact, let's call it. There are 330 forwards that have played at least 250 minutes together at all strengths so far this season. Michael Granlund's expected goals impact, 4th worst in hockey. The only players worse are Frank Vatrano, Patrick Kane, and Travis Boyd. 4th worst in hockey. And it's funny because I was looking at some of the line combinations and how players have performed in different combinations for Nashville this year. I'm going to be honest. As long as people don't have Michael Granlund on their line, they're not really playing that bad for Nashville. I was looking at numbers with just Cody Glass and Nino Niederreiter. 3.6 expected goals for, 2.3 expected goals against, 3.3 actual goals for, 1.2 against. Duchene and Johansson actually don't have terrible numbers together either. I don't have any interest in that Nashville top line. To me, that's that Nashville line is the Andrew Kopp, Lucas Raymond of Nashville, right? Like Granlund's just sinking everybody he plays with, and that includes Forsberg. and you can't even play Novak. So no interest on the Nashville top line. It'd be the second and third lines. I agree with you. I don't know if I'm full stacking anything because like Niederreiter, Glass, and Sissons, like I think two-manning like Glass and Niederreiter, like that would be one of the places I would look. I think this is game stackable, right? It would be one of the places I look to put them in with expensive Boston or expensive Edmonton or something like that, like a Niederreiter Glass two-man, like I said, or Niederreiter Sissons, whatever you want to do. Even Johansson and Duchesne, I think are playable together, even though Nashville did kind of change up their power play lines in the last game. They had Jordan Gross and Roman Josi on the top power play together. So, whether they go back to that in this game, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I don't mind like a Niederreiter Glass two-man, or, if you want to get a bit more expensive, like a Johansson Duchesne two-man or something like that. Particularly that Nashville second line. I think that's one of the spots where I would go look for cheap players to put in my expensive stacks. So that's kind of where I am with the Predators. But what do you say about Edmonton at this point? like you said, you play the top guys. I think you can take off Hyman for Nugent Hopkins, but honestly, Hyman's just shooting the puck and having such a good season that it's really, really hard to leave him off. I love the top line, the Nashville penalty kill, bottom five over the last month. Their goaltending has really, really, really let them down. Edmonton draws a lot of power plays. Nashville above average in time shorthanded this season. So I really, really do like the Edmonton top line. It's just a matter of finding cheap two-mans and cheap players to use with them. And I think this game is very one of those games where we can game stack and go use that, Niederreiter Glass or Glass Sissons or something like that.
Yep. And then on the blue line, Roman Josi, 8,400, I think is the best spend up spot on the night on the blue line. He plays half the game, and he's always involved if Nashville scores. So I think he's perfectly fine. I feel like Jesse Pinkman, when I talk about Tyson Barrie, I want to scream, how can you keep getting away with this? He's been on fire lately. I'm not going to scream because the dogs are sleeping. Don't need to wake those beasts up. But yeah, I'm a notorious Tyson Barrie fader, and it just feels bad hopping back on this wagon now at 5,100. But if you want to play him, I think it's fine for me. I'll still go back to Nurse at 5,500.
Yeah, Barry's a little expensive because it's what are you going to do? I think it kind of worked in their last game where if you won off Barry, he had 3 assists or whatever. How often is that really going to work?
No shots on goal, though.
Yeah, how's that? Yeah, exactly.
Alex Wenberg style.
Really going to work out, over and over for Edmonton, and he is expensive. So I don't really like Barry. I think Nurse is fine as a one-off if you want to use him. On the Nashville side, they said Alex Carrier is going to be back in the lineup. They said Ryan McDonagh's return is imminent, whether that means tonight or whether that means their next game. Ryan McDonagh could be back. So I think Dante Fabro's season is now officially canceled.
Yep.
Thanks to Mr. Fabro. We got a couple good games out of you. We appreciate your service. I guess Ekholm at 3K I think is perfectly fine. But yeah, it's got to be Roman Josi here. He's, I think, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate, defense or forward.
Absolutely. Let's go from this banger of a game to this sludge fest, probably. New York Islanders with a 2.5 total heading into Colorado. The Avs have a 3 total. Ilya Sorokin is confirmed. Alexander Georgiev probable, although I think I saw him get confirmed. Not sure there. JT Compher still up on that top line in between Lehkonen and Rantanen. Second line of Newhook, Rodriguez, and Valerie Nichushkin. I just never know what to do with the Islanders. If anything, I probably am going to that Lee Nelson Beauvillier line. And on the on the Avs side, I think going to that top line is fine, but I think I almost prefer the second line with Rodriguez and Nichushkin. Newhook has started to come alive a little bit now that he's not being relied on to be the second center. They moved him to the wing. He's kind of relaxed a little bit. I don't know. I kind of like that second line. But again, 5.5 total, 8 game slate. I don't know how much I'm prioritizing from this game.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, especially with that second line because of all the different price points, particularly on DraftKings. Mm-hmm. You have Newhook under 3K. You have Rodriguez at 4,500. Then you have Nichushkin at 8K. Like, it feels bad to say, but I think this is another case where you can go with a cheap 2-man and do like a New Hook Rodriguez 2-man. You know what I mean? Because this isn't necessarily a great power play spot for the Avs. So I don't think, you really need to include the PP1 guy here for Colorado. I think if, the Avs really do get there tonight, it's going to be through the 5-on-5 play, not necessarily the power play. So I don't think you need to include Nichushkin, and it makes it reasonably cheap 2-man between the two of them. I think average like $3,700 if you stack the two. So it's one of those 2-mans that I think you can put in with Edmonton or Boston or what have you. I agree with you. New Hook has looked better. Evan Rodriguez, he had a big game in his first game back. I think it was a goal and 6 shots or something like that. Not as much in his last one, but still fine. They're probably going to see a fair bit of that Lee Nelson Beauvillier line, and that line's just been bad defensively going all the way back to last year. I'm not worried about that matchup. What I'm worried about is Ilya Sorokin, right? Like, that's kind of what we say when you face the Islanders is like 5-on-5. It's not really that bad of a matchup. It's just facing Sorokin and whether he's going to stand on his head. So, yeah, I don't mind a New Hook Rodriguez 2-man. I don't think I'm going to go to Colorado 1 here. They're certainly in play, especially where they're not really carrying that much ownership. It is a good leverage play on the night, so I would definitely be including them. If I was playing 40 or 50 lineups or certainly 150 or whatever, 1 to 3, I don't think this is one of the expensive lines that I'm going to focus on. On the Islanders side, I don't know, man. They
either.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with them.
Wahlstrom's, his ice time's still not climbing a little bit. Matt Barzal played under 60 minutes in the last game. Looks like he got benched at the end. Didn't play at all with the empty net. Barzal, I was looking at his shots. He only has 34 shots in his last 19 games, and 9 of those shots came in one game, which means 25 shots in the other 18. That's not very good at all. Colorado's not terrible defensively. The top line's been fine. I don't, obviously Comfort's not great, but it's fine enough when you have Rantanen and oh God, why am I blanking on that top line? Rantanen, Lehkonen, yeah, God, former Hab. So not that bad. So probably nothing for me from the Islanders top line. It would be the Islanders second line. I think I do have interest in, because as bad as they are defensively, they do generate offensively. You do get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. They aren't super expensive, not coming in with a ton of ownership. So if anything, it would be Islanders 2 for me here. I think you can even drop down to Islanders 3 and go like a Parise Pajot 2-man or something like that, right? Like, Parise is actually not having a bad season. He's on pace for over 25 goals. Pajot's on the top power play unit. I think that's a perfectly acceptable 2-man. So I honestly think this is a case where I'm going to be looking at the depth plays more than the top lines.
Yeah, I wish Parise was a little bit cheaper. Clicking in $4,400 Parise in 2022, just,
I feel you.
Yeah, it just feels bad, and like it's just awful. But yeah, I actually don't mind that third line. On the like 4,400 Parise, I light some sage in my house before I do it, but we'll see what happens. On the blue lines here, I think the guys on the Islander side would be like Mayfield, Romanoff. I have to, check on Five Hose, minutes log here. I like he's still min price. I think Noah Dobson's even fine at 5,900, but I prefer the cheaper guys. On the Av side, Makar's pretty expensive. This isn't the best power play matchup, so I'm probably looking at Sam Girard 2,800, Eric Johnson 3,600, even Devin Tays 4,700.
Yeah, probably Sam Girard for me on the Colorado side. I agree with you. I don't think I'm paying up for Makar. This actually isn't a bad game for cheap defensemen. Like Sebastian Aho, the other Sebastian Aho, the defenseman, has been playing right around 20 minutes a game on average since Adam Pellet got hurt. He's still min price. I think Aho's very much in play at min price. I don't mind Romanoff either at 2,800. Feels like for that price, you don't really need a lot more than the shot block bonus from him. And it feels like this is a game where he can go out and get it. So, 2,800, I'd take that risk. I think I'm looking for cheap defensemen here, particularly on the Islanders side.
Yep. Let's move on to the people's main event, and it is the people's main event. It's my main event anyway. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.9 total heading into Arizona. The Coyotes have a 3 total. Jake Allen, Karel Vejmelka, probable. This game, my God. The 2 of the worst penalty kills in the league. Like, these lines are just, I don't know, like Kirby Doc, second line center with Slavkovsky and Drouin, Min Price Drouin on the top power play unit, top line of Caulfield, Suzuki, Anderson, third line of Dadonov, Dvorak, Hoffman. Like, there's 3 playable lines here for the Canadiens. On the Arizona side, like Nick Schmaltz off the top power play unit, which is, just a circus in itself. Top power play unit is now Keller, Boyd, Krause, Matthias Maselli, and JJ Moser. With Chikrin and Ghost still on the second power. Like, if these units were what they're supposed to be, it'd be such a much better game. But like, as it stands, I think, Habs top line's in play. I think the Krause line's in play. I think the Dvorak line's in play. I think if I had to rank it, and then we'll get your total here. On the Montreal side, I go Montreal 1, Suzuki, Montreal 3, Dvorak, Doc line. And on the Arizona side, it would probably be the Bustad Krause line, then the top line.
Yeah. Really weird line combinations here. The Montreal top line actually does have a reasonable sample with Josh Anderson there. Has been very good. 55 minutes together, a 35% shot attempt share. That's really bad. I don't know if Arizona is necessarily going to run them over, but does make a pretty good matchup for that Arizona top line. And they're not coming in with a ton of ownership, under 5%. We're showing in our top stacks tool on DraftKings, under 5% on FanDuel. I think that's perfectly fine on an 8-game slate at home against the Habs. Like I said, that Habs top line, pretty porous defensively. Offensively, I think they can be fine because Josh Anderson, he can create by himself. Suzuki and Caulfield have shown pretty good chemistry over the last year, basically since Martin St. Louis took over. But I think it's going down to, I agree with you, that Dvorak, Hoffman, third line. Now, I know they're coming in with a lot of ownership, one of the most over-owned spots on the night, along with the Arizona second line. But it is a pretty decent spot, obviously, against the Arizona depth. The Arizona depth, not very good. So I do think Montreal 1 is very much in play, but honestly, I think my favorite play on that line is just one-offing Josh Anderson rather than paying up for Caulfield or Suzuki. Other than that, dipping down to that third line with Dvorak and Hoffman. On the Arizona side, that second line's coming in with a ton of ownership.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, kind of in that line with Dvorak and Hoffman. I still like Lawson Krause as a one-off. I don't think you don't have to play Maselli with him. He just doesn't shoot. You really need 3 points out of him to really have a big DFS night. Not sure that you can do that. So Lawson Krause one off. I think it's the Arizona top line I'd be more inclined to play than anything. I know they split them up on the power play, but Montreal's penalty kill, they do allow a lot of shots, but the goalies have actually been pretty good on the penalty kill. So I'd focus more on the 5-on-5 here. And that's just full stack in the Arizona top line. So probably Arizona top line for me, maybe a 2-man of Dvorak and Hoffman, maybe one offing Josh Anderson, something like that.
I can get on board with that. My screen has froze. There we go. Let's move to the blue line. The Habs are going with a 5-man forward power play unit. So because Matheson is out again, so probably Jonathan Kovacevic, Caden Goulet, 3,400 is okay. On the Arizona side, Chikrin's fine in a nutshell. If you had top power play time, he'd be a great play, but that's probably about it. I guess you could play JJ Moser at 4,100 or Josh Brown at 2,800, but I don't know.
Yeah, Chikrin. My problem with Chikrin is he's kind of like Dougie Hamilton. He shoots a lot, but he doesn't block a lot of shots. So you're not, going to get a lot of block bonuses on DraftKings out of him. So you're relying on shots and points. And if you're relying on points from the Arizona Coyotes, it's really? So I don't mind him, but I think somebody like John Carlson, I think is a better play on defense for relatively the same price here tonight. Kovacevic is interesting because when Matheson was out and they had those injuries, a few games back, he was playing 20 minutes, 20 minutes plus sometimes. So I think he's fine at 2,600, but I think Sebastian Aho for the Islanders makes a better super cheap play than him. So not a lot for defensemen here for me.
Yep. If you've never signed up for a Stokastic membership, we got a 3-day risk-free NHL trial for you. Again, with all these reads, click the link in the description below. We will get credit if you sign up. And don't you want to give this space some credit? It is the holiday season. You get full access to everything NHL Stokastic has to offer, which is, we talk about the lineup builder, top stacks all the time. It really is how we get through the show, how we build our lineups. Cliffy has the lineup builder on the screen. If you see there's top stacks, the lineup builder gives you the lines, gives you power play units, projections, point projections for the line, ownership. There's a free version, but it doesn't have any of that. This is how we get through the show. This is how we build our lineups. It is honestly the best tool that we have. It has of our tools in there. You also get access to the Discord, which is invaluable. You get all the late breaking news with the lines. You get sharp minds. You get Niehaus talking about cooking ribeyes and catering trays. Everything you want. So yeah, click the link in the description below and get your 3-day free trial. About 8 minutes or about 6 minutes to the last two games left. Buffalo Sabres with a 3.0 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 3.6. Ukko, Pekka, Luukkonen. That's just really fun to say. Probable. Aiden Hill is confirmed. Now, if it was Logan Thompson, I probably would have less interest in the Buffalo top line here, just because, Vegas is a pretty good team. Even without Jack Eichel, they're still okay defensively. Phil Kessel up on that top line doesn't help them defensively. Aiden Hill, worse goalie than Logan Thompson. So I think Buffalo top line is in play for me. And I think going back to the Vegas second line, definitely in play, especially now that Riley Smith is on the top unit.
Yeah, I do like the spot 5-on-5 for Buffalo 1, especially with Aiden Hill in net. The problem is like Vegas really doesn't take penalties, 2.5 times shorthanded per game. And Buffalo, to really hit their upside, they really do need, some power play time. They're coming in pretty reasonably owned, just 9% on DraftKings. They're obviously coming in much lower owned or much higher owned than lines like Boston and Colorado, but lower than Dallas. I think Buffalo 1, perfectly acceptable to use here. Buffalo 2, still playing pretty well. Cousins, Peterka, Quinn, 3 expected goals for, 5 actual goals for in their last 110 minutes together. They are giving up quite a bit defensively. They're below average in that regard. Now, Vegas doesn't hard match, but I think I'm going to avoid the Vegas top line. Their goal scoring is pretty much cut in half at 5-on-5 without Jack Eichel. I'm not sure Phil Kessel's a really good replacement for him at this point of his career. So it'll be dumping down to Vegas too. I mean, Smith and Marchessault are both on the top power play unit now. I think Smith was near 20 minutes in that last game with that additional power play time. They've been playing really, really well at 5-on-5. It's just, the problem with them is shooting percentage. If they have a reasonable shooting percentage, they can score a lot of goals. If they don't, they won't, because they do generate a fair bit of offense. It's just actually hitting the net and scoring. So Vegas 2 for me here. I agree with you on Buffalo 1. I think they're a nice, reasonable pivot if you want to get away from, what should be a much higher owned Dallas line. So Buffalo 1, Vegas 2 for me in this game.
On the blue line here, Alex Pietrangelo is back. He was back over the weekend. Some scary stuff with his daughter. Glad she's okay. 6,400 on that top power play unit is perfectly fine. If not, I think Nick Hague is all right on the Buffalo side. This, Rasmus Dahlin, 7,200, I guess is fine, but again, like you mentioned before, I'd rather play Carlson for 6,700. I'd rather find the extra 1,200 for Yossi. So I think you can go to Pilot or Matthias Samuelsson here.
Yeah, I think it's probably Samuelsson. Him and Dahlin have been playing huge minutes of late, 26 to 28 minutes. If I can get that many minutes from Samuelsson for 3,200, don't mind him in that low threes range.
Yep. Let's get to the last game of the night. St. Louis Blues with a 3.1 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3.3. Their total has jumped 10% throughout the day from 3 to 3.3, even though Pettersson has been ruled out. Jordan Binnington, Spencer Martin, probable. Blues running back Saad, O'Reilly, Levo, Buchnevich, Shen, Tarasenko. Then the third line, which is fully correlated, Barbashev, Thomas, Kyrou, which actually I don't mind as a line because these Vancouver lines are just a mess. Garland, Horvat, Lazar, Mikheyev, JT Miller, Andre Kuzmenko, Hoglander, Peterson, Sheldon Dries. Like, I think like this is a sneaky blue spot. There just isn't much ownership outside of that Buchnevich and Tarasenko line, which obviously has the name value. But like Thomas is their best center. Kyrou has been a very good goal scorer. So like I don't mind going to this third line here.
Yeah. Robert Thomas is a really, really good playmaking center. Jordan Kyrou is just a really, really good offensive winger. So, definitely do have some interest in them. Like Barbashev and Thomas actually have decent offensive numbers together this year. They played nearly 50 minutes together, 3.7 expected goals for, nearly 4 actual goals, all perfectly correlated, playing against that depth from Vancouver. Like, I think that's another spot. Like, I know that they're expensive, but Barbashev wanted like 2 men like Barbashev, Kyrou. I think that's something that's perfectly in play. I think putting all 3 of them, like Thomas just doesn't shoot a lot. You're really relying on a 3-point game, especially on DraftKings, for him to have good DFS value. So like a 2-man of like Barbashev or Kyrou, something like that, I think is very much in play here. On the Vancouver side, I should mention that they went to Bo Horvat, JT Miller, Connor Garland for the second half of their last game, their 5-1 loss to Winnipeg. So with the optional skate, like I don't even know what the lines are going to be for the Canucks, especially with Besser possibly coming back tonight. So I think if anything, you just focus on the power play guys. Garland move up to the top power play with Pettersson out. If Besser's back, I think he'll probably get to the top power play, but there's a chance Garland, Horvat, and Miller are all together at 5-on-5 and on the power play. Not really a terrible power play spot for Vancouver. We know how bad St. Louis's penalty kill has been for most of the season. So I think it'd probably be just one-offing some guys from the Vancouver side. If I'm full stacking anything, it's St. Louis. And I think I agree with you. It's Barbashev, Thomas, Kyrou.
Yeah. And coming up right after us, we have the no house advantage. That's not knee house advantage. It's the no house advantage. Monday night NFL show coming up at the top of the hour. So if you're interested in no house advantage NFL, stick with us through the top here. 16 goals tonight. Who you like in net?
Yeah, a lot of goalies. I do like Linus Ullmark tonight. Obviously, Sorokin at his price on DK, I'll always play him, especially with the Avs not having Nathan McKinnon in the lineup. King Carl Vejmelka, always in play for me, especially against a low-scoring team like Montreal. And I'll mention Charlie Lindgren on FanDuel. He's got a pretty good FanDuel price, so I'll mention him as well.
Yeah, and I think, goalies against Boston, because since there's such a high-volume team, Spencer Knight has the ability to win any game he starts. So Spencer Knight is 7,200. I think is a nice pivot off Sorokin, especially on DraftKings. They're similar price points. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
We're going to Washington, baby, but it's not Ovechkin. I'm going to go with Evgeny Kuznetsov.
Very nice. I'm going to go from the last game we just talked about. I'm going Ivan Barbashev, baby. Keeping up with the spice.
That would be something to see. Ivan Barbashev, let's see what you can do. Evgeny Kuznetsov, let's see what you can do.
Yep. For Cliffy, I am Josh. We will see you tomorrow. We'll be here this week, except for Saturday. We have a nice schedule. So we'll see you in Discord. Click those links in the description. I want to see new faces in Discord. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, everyone.